Good afternoon. Very happy to be with you in Bari. And yes, as you can see from the title of my presentation, it's very much on the upside of technology, but sometimes also about the downsides of technology and promises and letdowns. And yes, coming from Politecnico, I think I can afford being a bit critical about technology and its relationship with social innovation and social entrepreneurship. You should know that when I started my career, that was in Torino, academic career in management of innovation. And in Torino is a company town, car making, car manufacturing. And what they teach you is innovation is pieces of iron. And if these pieces of iron are parts of a car, much better. And this is why when I started my PhD in economics in Manchester, I was very, very surprised to be welcomed by a very, very distinguished scholar. That was Richard Nelson, Dick Nelson, that in 1974 wrote this very important sentence. That was 5 years after moon landing. And Dick Nelson basically welcomed me, saying, if we can land a man on the moon, why can't we solve the problems of the ghetto? And unfortunately, 50 years later, we're still there. And one of the things is that technology and innovation on one side and social problems on the other side are two quintessential wicked problems. And the easiest way to handle it when you have two wicked problems is to keep them as separated as possible. Because the idea is if you couple two wicked problems, you will have a squared wicked problem. Probably that's a wrong assumption. And there is some opportunity laying in the fact that we couple two wicked problems, technology innovation and social innovation and social problems, and we may come out with some very brilliant solution. But in order to do so, we need to change a little bit our perspective on technology and innovation. And this is why the structure of my presentation is basically try to compare or to put aside the promises that have been kept and the very many letdowns that we have. Because we forget some very important things. And let me share with you the end of my story. That is pretty self-critical. The end of the story is this one. In technical school, in research labs, in polytechnic schools, engineering schools, we have for probably the last 100 years been teaching our students and future engineers and future technologists to innovate in a world of abundant resources and very loose constraints. The underlying assumption of our model of innovation is we can use the resources of the planet more or less to any extent that is needed for super functional innovation. And on the other side, even worse, we can use inequalities without basically any worry. Big news is that it is no longer true. We now need to change our mindset, our attitude, our innovation paradigm, and to turn to a paradigm that is being able to innovate in a world of scarce resources and tight constraints. That is the point that I want to make today. And in order to do so, and in order to find a solution and to learn from someone or from somewhere how to innovate in the new paradigm, we need to know that, yes, innovation has been a very useful purpose-enabling device, but we are also full of purposeless innovation. And it is becoming a problem. And on the other side, innovation has been able to deliver brilliant, better solutions to social problems. But on the other side, we have such a thing as the unintended consequences of technology. Yes, the point is that technology and innovation have endogenous crises. They do produce crises from inside. And this is something that we have been neglecting in the last 50 years. And of course, technology is a wonderful thing for all of you to scale up their impact. But yes, we need to come to terms with the fact that something went wrong, and we have innovation that have never scaled, or even worse, that are viciously scaling. And this is something that we need to reflect upon if we want to scale impact without unintended consequences. So let's see what I mean by that. Purpose enabling innovation. This is the crucial point at this point. And in order to understand what purpose enabling innovation is, I think we need to think a little bit on what's happening in models of entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. And the point we have is that we have, not you, you're very young, but me, I've been educated and I learned my economics in a world in which we had a sort of bipolar situation. We had the third sector on the one side and the profit models on the other side, and in the very middle, a sort of no man's land. Now, the big news is that the no man's land is becoming populated. And it's becoming populated of very interesting hybrid models of entrepreneurship. And in particular, if you move from right to left, we have the traditional for-profit, then we have the profit with purpose, and then again, the profit for purpose. And I'm not moving leftward on this spectrum because you know very well the left side of the spectrum, right? You're native of, most of you are native of the left side of the spectrum. But let me focus a little bit in the switch between profit with purpose to profit for purpose. Purpose is becoming a very popular word, right? Very popular, very abused. And the point is that our notion of purpose is very easy. It's not deep. There is this guy from Harvard called Gulati that wrote this beautiful book, the title of which is Deep Purpose. And what is deep purpose? It's taking purpose seriously. It's acting purpose seriously. And this is the big thing that is happening in what I consider being the second half of the game in sustainability and purpose. The first half of the game was about collective awareness, making everybody aware of how important sustainability and purpose is. The second half of the game is what we put inside the word sustainability and purpose, actually. And in order to take this step forward, we need to look at the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that there is a rivalry between sustainability and profit. If we keep on with this very easy and advocacy-inspired idea that sustainability and profit are always aligned and there is no trade-off, we're lost. So the two big steps are taking the purpose business very seriously, looking at the elephant in the room, come to terms with the fact that there is a trade-off between the solution of social problem and profitability, and find a way not to propose a model in which the only solution is give up with sustainability, with profitability, because this is not a feasible action. And so, let me try to explain with an example what I mean. Let's assume you're talking about an insurance company, large insurance company. And you ask them how they act their purpose, how they are sustainable. And what they will tell you will be probably, okay, I'm not printing my insurance contracts on paper, so I'm saving the trees. Well, good, but fair enough. On the second step, if you challenge them, they will tell you, okay, I'm not using plastic bottle for water, but I'm using water dispenser. Excellent. And then you challenge them, and they will tell you, I've promoted women in top positions. And you say, well, probably it was not very costly. Probably you took advantage of that. So not a huge sacrifice. And then they will start saying, okay, but I also invested in ESG financial funds. So I'm not longer investing in bombs, weapons, prostitution, gambling, and other things. Fair enough. And there you challenge them with the real question, with the elephant in the room, and you tell them, are you offering a life insurance to chronic diabetes patients? And they will say no. And their answer will be no, because it is not profitable. It is too risky for my profitability. Now, the question for you is, with this answer, are managers protecting their profitability, or are they just revealing their inefficiency and their inability to innovate? Because we all know that if you explore the frontier of technology, you have such wearable smart devices. You have monitoring technique. You have therapies through which life expectancy of a chronic diabetes patient is exactly the same of the one of the healthy person. So when you say, I'm not offering a life insurance protection to a diabetes chronic patient, the point is not just that you are unable to handle your profitability. The point is that you are not innovative. And this is exactly the intuition. The intuition is innovation and sustainability are exactly the same words. And when I say innovation is the enabler for purpose, is exactly what I mean. If you don't take innovation seriously, if you are not a good innovator, you will end up in a mousetrap. You will end up in a dead-end road. That is, you will have to trade 1 unit of profit against 1 unit of purpose. And it is terrible. Right? Innovation is the one thing that will allow you to escape this trap, that will allow you not to trade 1 unit of impact against 1 unit of profit. And the discussion, is there a trade-off? Are you more impact-oriented or profit-oriented? I think it's a meaningless discussion nowadays. The point is, are you innovative enough to be able to pursue impact and profit with the same effort? If you are not, it's not that you are profit-oriented, it's that you are technologically inefficient. We all know that innovation is delivering and technology is delivering wonderful solutions. Right? Here you have a few examples, but we can spend the whole day listing the wonderful things that technology has done for enabling good solution. But the truth is that we are full of purposeless innovation. The innovation on the left side is the floating garden. It's the Indra Lake in Myanmar. And the point is that the farmers were desperate because twice a year the monsoon were flooding their vegetables and their fruits and all their cultivation. And they started growing their vegetables and fruits on floating platforms of mud and hay. That's a wonderful innovation, right? Very clever. And on the other side, you have another innovation that is important, but probably we can live without. Now, the point is, when I ask my students, do you want to be my sales agent? I will give you $1 per item sold. 99% of them, they will say, I want to be a sales agent for the floating casino. because the floating casino has a market, because there is a market. So the point we are now, and this is why we need to think about innovation for sense and purpose, is that the real challenge ahead is we need to give a market to the left side of the picture, we need to give a sense to the right side of the picture. And having sense and purpose innovation is the future challenge. And I'll tell you why. This is the challenge. I may have a sort of answer at the end of the presentation. But then, let's try to turn the results of your last poll. I like this sentence. The invention of the ship was also the invention of the shipwreck. This is a big truth. Who invented the ship invented the shipwreck. That means innovation always comes with unintended consequences, which we need to consider. When I say we are used to innovate in a world of abundant, infinite resources, I say we have limited ourselves to the first part of the phrase, pretending that the second part of the phrase was not there. But the second part of the phrase is there. And there are 3 examples that I've prepared for you to demonstrate how important is taking account of the unintended consequences of innovation. The first example, and the first part of the story, is the underachievements of the knowledge economy. The knowledge economy is something that we have been adoring and celebrating in the last 30 years. We thought that intangibles and innovation and startups and technology would say the word. And again, the assumption was what? The assumption was that the startup model that we blindly copied by the Silicon Valley, more or less, was generating so much wealth that it would spill over in a fair and equal way on the communities. That there was no redistribution problem. There was a redistribution problem, a huge redistribution problem. If you read this book, very clever book, by a guy called Dan Bretznis, it says, across the world, cities and regions have wasted trillions of dollars blindly copying the Silicon Valley model. And all the social dividends of technologies have been thought in terms of brilliant startuppers following the aesthetic of the Silicon Valley that would create opportunities for everybody, and all geographical places, all social sectors would have been benefited by this wonderful creation of things. The result is, and is demonstrated in this book, a small number of regions and cities at the top of the high-tech industry, but many more fighting a losing battle to retain economic dynamism. This is something that we need to take into account. There is an endogenous crisis, and the model of the high-tech hipsters and the Silicon Valley replicated in every single places, in Matera, in Basilicata, in everywhere, is a model that is creating inequalities. And we need to fight this political narrative of technology that on its own account is creating equal opportunities and is not creating inequality. And this is the thing. There is a huge exclusion thing. When I say that we have super-functional innovation, that we are very selfish innovation, there is another beautiful book that I cannot show by contract, otherwise my rector would fire me, that is called Sociopathic Innovation. Sociopathic innovation means an innovator that thinks more or less on his own welfare and is not thinking of other people. And the sociopathic innovation is hidden in very strange places. You may remember what happened with the e-scooters that you see there. Go back with your mind to a couple of years ago when there was this huge political effort to subsidize the diffusion of e-scooters. The narrative was very green. All the circular economy fans were very excited, right? And only the technological green dimension of the innovation was taken into consideration. Nowadays, we have an exponential growth of medical expenditure for accidents, and we have an impressive number of people, blind people, people with problems with their sight, people with problems with their mobility, that are giving up on their daily walkouts because of the fear of the e-scooters. This side of innovation, the social negative impact of innovation, is never considered by innovation. And if we take the car-to-go model, that again is considered in the hipster narrative of the circular economy as a wonderful thing because you have less traffic, you have less cars, you have less everything, but then we all have at least one friend on a wheelchair. And the typical economic view that would say, okay, the guy on the wheelchair did not have any business, any car-sharing business model. He didn't have it before, he doesn't have it now. And you, Mario, you have it. So it's an efficient model. You're better off, he's not worse off. But the point is he really not worse off, the guy on the wheelchair? His gap of opportunity, the difference of opportunity between himself and me, has widened in an impressive way. And again, this is sociopathic innovation. And again, the green excitement that quite rightly is around the car-to-go model has made us blind on the negative social consequences of this kind of innovation that are always neglected. And unfortunately, these negative consequences are very rapid and unpredictable because we are no longer in the word of John Steinbeck. This is one of the most beautiful books in social innovation, I think. The story of the mechanization of US agriculture and the US agriculture, and of course, a lot of farmers lost their jobs. But that crisis, technology-related crisis, was slow and predictable. All these crises are no longer slow and predictable. So the point is, impact is about predicting and incorporating ex ante the future problems, not managing them afterwards. The third thing is about scaling. Okay, do not waste our time in listing all the wonderful opportunity in the scaling of technology. But my question is, we have a lot of very pure and positive and natively social models, like food sharing models. These are quintessential social innovation, based on the most pure principles of social innovation. Relationship, sharing, peer-to-peer exchange, no hierarchy. All this DNA was perfect. Then, these social innovation ideas, the moment they encounter technology and scaling, they become very vicious. So something between the initial concept, social innovation concept of food sharing, and Glovo, sending an algorithm to a guy that was killed by a car, firing him after he was died, something has gone wrong. And we need to come to terms with that. When technology meets social innovation, sometimes scaling becomes very perverse. And the problem is ours, because apparently we have not been able to find a consistent model of governance that would control the negative effects of technology when it scales, spoiling all the native social nature of business models. And we need to come to terms with that, because it's true for Uber, it's true for Glovo, it's true for Airbnb, all things that we have loved at the very beginning and then have become very vicious. Third and last, the tragedy of efficiency. Take a look at this book. It's a wonderful book, and I introduce it through a little story. Politecnico di Milano is a wonderful technological university, and a few weeks ago we have been asked by a food delivery company, someone that is delivering hot meals to hospitals and schools, to use artificial intelligence to predict exactly the number of meals that they should deliver the day after in the hospital, for example. So predicting exactly how many people would be in the hospital the day after. And since Politecnico di Milano is incredibly clever, we have designed a wonderful AI algorithm that is able to predict exactly the number of meals that have to be delivered. And this is wonderful. Again, a huge celebration by, for example, the enthusiastic of food sharing, circular economy. No one single meal is wasted, and everybody is very, very happy. But the day after, someone knocked at my door. And that was an old guy saying, I represent 20 social enterprises and associations in Milan. And I need to tell you something. With this waste, I am feeding half of the poor people in Milano. So what shall we do now that no meal is wasted? And the point is very important, because the usual answer of an economist, yes, but we internalize the inefficiency. It becomes efficiencies, and this efficiency will be given back to the poor people in Milano. And he said, yes, very clever, but tonight, in Via Vittor Pisani in Milano, I have 100 people rough sleeping. And I don't have a single hot meal to bring them. What is the point? The point is the transition from inefficiency to efficiency, especially the one that is enabled by technology, has to be managed, has to be taken into account. And innovation that does not take into account the transition problem between inefficiency and efficiency is no innovation, is not innovation at all. And it is a crucial feature of innovation. So I think that in our new paradigm, we need to reconsider inefficiency. And we need to call innovation whatever takes into account the transition between innovation and between inefficiency and efficiency. And the big point is, how do we manage it and how do we do? And so I'm coming to my conclusion. I think there are two ways to do so. We either cocoon innovation in organizations that are social by nature or by design or by governance, hoping that innovation cocoons in these kind of enterprises takes its better features, hypothesis one, and this is why I believe in social tech entrepreneurship. Not because I want to make social enterprises more efficient, also, of course, but also because I think that the properties of innovation, when engraved in social entrepreneurship, become much better. And it is a long process, and we may discuss about that. The other thing is, we need to change our paradigm of innovation, because, of course, it's a bit vain to think that we can engrave all the innovation of the world and that we need in social enterprises. So we need to change, to contaminate the word of innovation. And I think there are three places where we can learn from. Two sources of knowledge, two sources of new mindset. And the three places are nature, third sector, and the south hemisphere of the world. Because these are the three places that are, by design, natively able to innovate in a world of scarce resources and tight constraints. So, for example, I do like this thing, these robots that are designing coping the nature. Coping the nature is a very good way to learn and inspire innovation through nature, is a very good way to innovate with a scarce resource mindset, with an utilitarian mindset. One of the nice discussions that I always have, so nature is a good source of new innovation paradigm. And then there is this guy there. You know what this guy there is doing? Is sticking plastic bottle with the bottom cut off in his walls instead of the windows. You know why? You should have a poll about that. Why is he sticking his house, and it is very common in certain places of South Pacific Asia, is sticking plastic bottle? Because there is something called the Venturi principle. The Venturi principle is a principle by which the air flows in the bottle, then it gets a little bit compressed in the bottleneck, and when it comes into the house and expands, refreshes a little bit. It's a very frugal air conditioning system. Yeah? And my colleagues at the Department of Energy at Politecnico, they laugh their head out when they see that, of course, because they're working on the new generation of air conditioning. And of course, these guys, they laugh, and they are very happy because their air conditioning, their technological trajectory is very energy intensive, and therefore, there are a lot of CO2 emissions associated, and the temperature rises. And when the temperature becomes higher, they're happy because they sell more air conditioning system. And the more they sell, the more the CO2, the higher the temperature. And for the 2, 3, 4 iterations, they are very happy. But then one day, flooding comes in. The high-tech trajectory is over because it's not compatible with CO2 emissions, with flooding, with all the climate change things. And so what? Shall we stick plastic bottles in our walls? Of course not. But maybe paying a visit to that guy and ask him to teach us how to innovate in a different world, this could be a very, very clever idea. Thank you very much.